I want to tell you about a case that I think you'll find really interesting. A 3-year-old female alpaca came in for a breeding soundness exam, and her owner was convinced something was wrong. She'd been bred multiple times over the course of a year and nothing ever happened. The owner thought maybe she'd become pregnant at some point, but they never actually did an ultrasound to confirm it. And here's the thing. Every single time they tried to breed her, something seemed off. The female would appear really uncomfortable during breeding, and she'd stand up very quickly after the male started to attempt breeding her. At one point, another breeder even tried to manually break down what they thought might be a hymen. But you know what? None of that was the real problem. And that's exactly what I want to talk about today, because this case reveals something that might be happening in your herd right now. A hidden defect that makes breeding impossible, no matter how many times you try. So let me take you back to that examination. When I looked at this female, I found something that explained everything. She had an abnormally small vulvar opening. We're talking about 8 millimeters in length. That's tiny. And what I was looking at is called a partially imperforate vulva. And it's a congenital deformity. Now, congenital means this defect was present from birth, but here's the key thing. It often doesn't become obvious until an owner actually tries to breed the female. And that's exactly what happened in this case. Every single breeding attempt was destined to fail from the start, no matter how many times the owner tried, no matter how much effort they put in, no matter how much fuel they burned to get into the breeding location, or how much hope they had. The opening was simply too small to permit successful breeding to take place. I want you to think about this for a second. How many times have you bred a female without getting a clear answer about whether she's actually pregnant or whether there's an underlying problem? Because this is exactly the situation where people start guessing instead of getting answers. Months pass, effort accumulates, fuel gets burned, hope fades. But the real problem stays hidden. And that's the frustrating part. Now, this case involved a partially imperforate vulva in a maiden female at breeding age. But there's also a more severe version of this defect that shows up much earlier, in newborn crias. And I think it's really important that you know what to look for, because if you catch it early, you can help that baby immediately. The completely imperforate vulva is the severe form of this defect, and it appears in newborn crias in the first few days of life. What you'll see is the cria straining to urinate right from the start. As urine builds up behind what is essentially a sealed vulva, the straining becomes more and more persistent. And then you'll notice something else. The vulva starts to pouch out below the anus as a fluid-filled swelling. At first, depending on how much urine is backing up, this swelling might actually disappear when the cria pushes. But eventually, it stays there all the time. And here's why this matters. The longer that obstruction stays in place, the higher the risk of kidney damage from back pressure of urine backing up into the kidneys. So quick action is vital. Now, sometimes what happens is there's a tiny hole present that allows just a small amount of urine to escape under pressure. Other times, the opening is larger, and the defect only gets discovered later when a maiden female reaches breeding age, and she struggles to get pregnant. Exactly like the case we're talking about here. The really good news is that the imperforate vulvar defect is easily corrected, and the procedure can be done right on your farm. You don't need to transport your animal anywhere. We prepare the area with a sterile prep, apply a local anesthetic ointment to numb the region, and then make a simple incision in the midline to create a normal-sized vulvar opening. The entire procedure is quick, it's straightforward, and it can be done on farm with minimal stress to the animal. After the incision is made, the swelling quickly disappears because urine is finally free to flow normally. After that, the area needs to be cleaned twice daily for about 5 to 7 days with warm salty water or a dilute iodine solution. After each cleaning, apply a topical antibiotic ointment. I usually use an ophthalmic ointment with an anti-inflammatory component. And here's the nice part. No sutures are needed. The wound heals really well because the physical debridement that happens during cleaning, combined with the regular passage of urine, keeps the opening from sealing back over again. But here's where the conversation gets a little uncomfortable, but very important. This is where breeding decisions become critical, because research suggests this defect may be heritable, and that changes what you should do with an affected female. There is a published report of 2 full sibling alpacas that were both found to have this same defect. And in other species, marmosets, for example, an autosomal recessive mode of inheritance was proposed. What that means is that apparently normal parents can carry the defect and pass it on to their offspring without showing any signs themselves. They look perfectly healthy, but they're carriers of the genetic defect. So here's the hard truth. An affected female should not be bred, regardless of whether the defect was corrected when she was a newborn cria or whether it was discovered later at a breeding soundness exam. This isn't about judgment. This is about protecting your herd's future and making responsible breeding decisions. If you correct an imperforate vulva in a female, she can live a perfectly normal life as a pet. She can be a wonderful companion animal, but breeding her is not the right choice. In addition, if you've had this situation, you should not repeat the same breeding with the same parents because it's more likely the defect will crop up again in future offspring. And you need to monitor any offspring from either parent for recurrence of this defect. Think about it. If you discovered your female had this defect, would you now know what to do with her going forward? A breeding soundness exam gives you answers. It gives you clarity, lets you make informed decisions instead of wasting time, money, and hope on breeding that was never going to work in the first place. So, if you've had a female who won't get pregnant, here's what I want you to do. Book a breeding soundness exam instead of repeating unsuccessful breedings. Get answers. Make informed decisions. Stop guessing. Stop hoping that the next breeding will be the one. Get clarity so you can move forward with confidence. We bring confidence, clarity, and freedom in Camelid care. Check out the video notes to find out how you can get in touch. Please be sure to subscribe to this channel to see more content that helps you keep your herd healthy, confident, and productive. Because when you have answers, you make better decisions. And better decisions lead to better outcomes for your animals and your operation. Thanks for watching.